Hey, Grant Miller here, Miami Community News. I'm with Public Safety Director Reyes.
Thank
you.
you.
It's our pleasure. Let's do a little history about you. Where did you grow up? In
Hialeah. So I was born in Cuba. My dad was a political prisoner, so he brought us to this great country in 1979. Grew up in, we first lived with my grandmother in Miami Gardens. Wasn't Miami Gardens back then.
Carroll City.
Carroll City.
What street?
Right off 179th and 41st.
My brother and I, we grew up in, we call it Carroll City, right next to Norland Middle.
Okay.
All right.
And
so
from there, I was Hialeah. From there on, I lived in Hialeah over 20 years.
your elementary school, which one did you go?
John G. Dupuy.
Who's your favorite teacher? These are tough questions.
Miss De Los Rios.
Okay.
She was my first grade teacher.
Middle school.
Palm Springs.
Who's your favorite teacher?
Mr. Culver.
High school.
Hialeah High.
Favorite teacher?
Wow, that one's difficult. Mr. Turner.
It's interesting. You think back, they make such a big impact on you in life.
Absolutely.
All right. So then after that, what did you do?
I went to school right here in Barry University. Got my bachelor's there in criminology, and then I wanted to do something in that field, obviously, and serve the community in some capacity. At the time, in the late 90s, the Broward Sheriff's Office was growing exponentially. We had Senator Jenny had gotten elected, and he was the sheriff at the time, and had just started merging with municipalities, and the law enforcement cadre was growing, was building new jails. Correctionally, we were growing, and they had just merged fire rescue into the sheriff's office. So everywhere you went in South Florida, they were recruiting, and it caught my attention, and I got my foot in the door there, started there in corrections, and extremely proud of the career I had there. Over 22 years, I ended up working for 4 different sheriffs, Democrats, Republicans, you name it. But the thing that I'm extremely proud of is I got promoted under all 4 and ended up being the executive director and a colonel there for 4 years.
Well, you married?
Yes, sir.
How many years?
That's a good question. I'm going to say 22. Truly, I say officially, we got married in 2009, but we lived together for 8 years. So I include the living together as part of that. Absolutely. And so we've been together over 20 years.
You have 2 kids or 3
kids? I have 3 kids.
Wow. Ages?
My oldest is 10, and I have 8-year-old twins, boy-girl twins that are 8. So we're busy. Campaigning has been tough because I've been away from my family probably the first time in my life.
Okay,
I've been away, so.
We've been talking about your dad before this, but
yes.
Let's talk about your mom and dad. Are they still alive?
Yes, I'm blessed.
Okay.
I have them both.
How old are they? My
dad's 84, mom's 74. Mom worked in the North Miami Aventura area for 30 years. So we had a very heavy Jewish influence in our youth. Because they opened their doors to my mom and gave her every opportunity. She worked for a Jewish boss for 30 years, and she really was accepted by that community, and they treated her very well. My dad has retired 3 times and keepes pushing. He's 84.
I love it.
Still staying busy to today. He's done everything. He had an air conditioning company. Then started, at one point, I'll say it, I was dating someone that was working in the Brinks Corporation.
Right.
And my old man went from having his own AC company to picking up money in banks. And then from that, he just started doing property management, which my brother does a lot here locally of.
Okay. How many brothers and sisters?
I got one older brother. He's very influential in my life. He works very hard. He has now 4 kids, 2 are grown, finishing medical school, and then he has 2 little kids. So
lucky him.
Yeah,
keep him busy.
Him. So that keeps him busy. He has a very solid footprint in the El Portal area. From
if people don't know where that is, it's part of next to Miami Shores. That's a big St. Park.
Right.
A little south of North Miami.
That's right.
And I think it was founded in the 30s. Or Biscayne Park was founded in 33. Right. So El Portal.
Right after.
And they have a little police force.
They do. They do have a little police force there. A handful of officers. They have a great mayor that I love working alongside. Very energetic. Has a great vision for that little town. And I think next year he's up for being the head of the League of Cities.
Yes, that's what I heard. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about what makes you most qualified to run our community.
Grant, I could tell you that while I've been covering the four corners of this community, the message that resonated was the experience in a sheriff's office and being the only candidate with executive leadership experience in a sheriff's office. The community really responded well to wanting someone that has the experience in an independently run office, which, in Miami-Dade County, we haven't had that in 60 years. Our police department has always operated as an extension of county government, right? And has had that overwatch, so to speak, and that supervision from county government. And it's the first time in 60 years that we're going to have an independent sheriff here in Miami-Dade County. And having ran the Broward Sheriff's Office as the executive director there and having the rank of colonel for 4 years, being able to manage a $1.2 billion budget independently was
$2 billion. You said 1.2.
1.2 billion.
That is separate from Miami-Dade. It's its own.
So the $1.2 billion budget that I managed for 4 years, that was at Broward.
Okay, and
and Miami-Dade, if it's PD alone, will be $1 million. If they include corrections, which 2 out of the 3 necessary votes have passed already.
Who decides that?
The county commission by statute. By statute, the county commission throughout the state of Florida has the authority to give the responsibility of corrections to the sheriff. We've now had 2 out of the 3 votes necessary.
And what do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea. I think there's a reason why in the majority of the counties, I think up to 64 of our counties now have the sheriff operating its correctional system. It definitely produces certain efficiencies and certain effectiveness that makes public safety stronger from a community perspective.
So it'd be the police and the correction.
It's both. The budget is 1.5 billion.
Billion.
It's just
okay.
police,
And what about the fire? Fire is not part of it.
Right now, there's been zero conversation as to fire going over to the sheriff. The difference being here in Miami-Dade County that I see that I don't know that there would be a willingness on the side of the commission is that fire has their own taxing district, right? They're their own taxing authority. So it really doesn't put stress on the general fund. So I don't see why.
And could they vote that
they
5 years from now? Okay, correct. So it's a big thing going.
Big responsibility.
How long do you think it's going to take from the day you win to get it together? It's like it's massive. How many employees are there? Including corrections.
Including corrections, it would be a little over 8,000. So right now, you're talking about 5,000 in PD and 3,000 in corrections. So you're looking at if they join together, we would be the second largest sheriff's office in the country behind LA County.
And LA County is 25 million.
No, not 25 million. No, we're talking about staff. I'm talking about staff.
Right, but I'm saying LA County.
Oh, you're talking about population.
Yeah, it's giant.
It's giant.
We're only 3 million, give or take.
Yes.
Okay, there's the biggest issue I see. One of the biggest issues is mental health. Yes. We years ago there's just problems. How do you arrest them? What do you do? Autism now has a sticker that puts in their window so people know the police come. How do we train these police officers and to handle this? And a lot of the homeless people think these people want to be on the street. Most of them have mental illnesses. So what will you do when you get elected?
So I tell people, and this is a change that our community can expect. I have a police director. She's doing a great job. Stephanie Daniels, extremely.
Hold on a second. There's no question. She is good.
Extremely proud of her. But whether you're police director or traditionally a police chief here in Miami-Dade County, I think most of those leaders view their role as enforcing the law, right? Making sure that everyone's following the law. But I like to tell everyone that in my experience, the sheriffs that did it right, the role of sheriff is to truly serve as the conscience of the community. And there's a difference there because you talked about mental illness, and mental illness is the perfect subject to discuss the difference of what we can expect from having a sheriff to having a police director. And suffering from mental illness is not illegal. It's not a violation of the law. Yet the sheriff should be a vocal voice, an important voice in the conversation to make sure that we're deploying the necessary resources as a county to help those that suffer from mental illness. And you mentioned in terms of call for service that when responding to those that are suffering or that do suffer from mental illness. And, there's best practices already being established. I can tell you in 2019, the Broward Sheriff's Office unveiled a completely robust co-responder model, which Miami-Dade has been piloting. I know its effectiveness. I'm confident in it, and I'm committed to expanding that as soon as we take office. It's truly important to deploy licensed mental health practitioners to these type of calls alongside our sworn officers, because to your point, there's only so many hours of training that we could give our officers, and we know when we deploy them to calls of crises of those suffering from mental illness, deploying a mental health licensed practitioner tends to lower the temperature. It tends to be able to de-escalate the situation, and more often than not, we don't use force when we have a professional there, and even more so, we're able and have the opportunity to divert that person from going to jail. And that's important, and that's one side of the token, right? The other side is, unfortunately, sometimes these folks have weapons, and we can't deploy a licensed mental health practitioner. And in those cases, we need a cadre of highly trained sworn officers in communication of those that suffer from mental illness that are able to de-escalate those situations. All too often, we've seen situations with folks suffering from mental illness that end up in use of force. And we have to do our part in trying to de-escalate it, but we have to do it in a way that ensures the safety of our officers, and it ensures also the safety of our community.
Right. I was just saying the community is a major part. The biggest public safety challenge you see?
We just talked about it.
That's it, mental health.
I think without a doubt, mental health. I think you'll hear some folks maybe talk about the transition being the biggest challenge. I like to, remind the officers, remind our staff that the transition is my responsibility as the leader of the organization, and my command staff's responsibility to transition. They need to focus on continuing doing the good work that they're doing and continuing to keep our community safe. That should be their priority. They don't have any reason to worry about the transition.
Yeah, everybody thinks it's just the homeless that has mental illness. No, it's all over. And I see it. I see it on TV stations, or you see this person has mental illness and the cop shows up. He gets frantic, or she gets frantic. If you bring somebody who understands it, it'll calm it down.
Absolutely, and that's what we want to do. We want our officers to stay safe. We want the person in crisis to stay safe. And in the end, we still want to make sure that we're ensuring public safety. And there's alternatives to that. I mean, when you look right now and you talk about the high numbers that you see, our inmate population speaks for itself. 70% of those in our custody right now in our jails are on our mental health caseload. So 7 out of 10 inmates suffer from some form of mental illness or are being treated for some form of mental illness right now in Miami-Dade County. So that tells you the pool of folks that we're dealing with out in the community. And it tells you why also it's important to have corrections and law enforcement under the same umbrella, because it provides us with an opportunity to have a continuity of service and be able to ensure that when we release these folks, they have the services necessary to make sure they integrate back into society without us being called for another call for service or another call for crises.
Is it your title was executive director in Broward?
Yes, executive director and colonel. I have the rank of colonel.
What was one of the biggest challenges you experienced there, and how did you handle it?
One of the biggest challenges, let's see. Well, I was challenged at the time, post MSD in 2019. Governor DeSantis gives us a new sheriff, appoints a new sheriff, and the sheriff challenged me, knowing the history I've had of improving morale, with improving the morale on the law enforcement side as well. And that's when my role expands, not only over corrections, but law enforcement and the administration of law enforcement and fire rescue as well. Being able to give more of myself to a different discipline was something that was that I was very proud of. It really reignited me and at a time where I was comfortable, and it really challenged me. It took a lot of time. We had the MSD commission at the time making recommendations for corrective action, lessons learned, things that we could do better. And Sheriff Tony at the time challenged me to take care of a lot of those shortcomings. And I'm extremely proud of how we came together. He picked a team that was homegrown, and we came together to address the deficiencies that were noted. And I look back, and it's a very challenging time in my career. I was working crazy hours to make it happen. I never thought I was going to work for a sheriff that was younger than me. Greg Tony's the first time that ever happened to me. He brings a lot of energy and enthusiasm to the job. And for me, I had to dig deep in terms of the amount of hours that we put in, but we did it for the right reasons. Our staff deserved it, and I'm extremely proud of what we left behind, the legacy projects that we left behind. I was in the pinnacle of my career in 2022 when I received 2 calls from 2 different sheriffs, one out of Colorado, one out of Idaho, believe it or not.
Idaho?
Idaho,
Is
yes,
that still
sir.
part of the United States?
Yes, it is,
Okay.
believe it or not. And I had worked with them, one of them in particular, on some mental health initiatives on the national level. And they thought that I was a good fit for a job. And I told them, funny you should say that, because I'm not interested. I'm not looking for work. I'm in the pinnacle of my career, serving as the colonel and executive director here at the Broward Sheriff's Office. And they told me, well, what if we told you that the opportunity was in Miami-Dade? And that changed my life completely, because it gave me an opportunity to come back home and serve this wonderful community that for so many years gave me and my parents every opportunity under the sun to achieve the American dream. So it's truly been the highlight of my career, being recruited to come back home. To me, it's been a blessing.
All right. Gun violence. A lot of Americans, a lot of Miami-Dade citizens have been killed by it. What strategies would you do to address gun violence in Miami-Dade County?
I think one of the things that I always like to remind everyone is that Miami-Dade County, for the last 4 years, has defied numbers and trends that we've seen in other metropolitan areas in terms of gun violence. The rate of gun violence that we have in this wonderful county does not compare in terms of the higher numbers that we've seen in some of the metropolitan areas. And I think that's a kudos to our officers, the men and women in uniform, and also the proactive strategic enforcements that we've done that have taken so many thousands of illegal guns off the street. It's also a testament to the community partnerships that we've built with different organizations, whether it's Florida, parents of murdered children, Mothers Demand Justice. I mean, I could go on and on with different organizations that we've teamed up with throughout the years that have a voice, that talk to our youth. But I think as the sheriff, I have a responsibility. All too often we hear about this school to prison pipeline. And I think I have a responsibility, and one of my goals is to replace that with a school to public service pipeline. And we could do a better job at recruiting youth and getting them off our streets and recruiting them into public service. One of the things I'm extremely proud of is we have four of the leaders in public safety. My fire chief, my 2 directors, the corrections director, the law enforcement director, and myself. We're all homegrown. We're all Miami-Dade products, yet we don't feature that enough so that our youth can aspire to achieve positions like that can give back to the community that's here to protect them.
I'm sure I told you, Chief Ray grew up half a block here. It's a beautiful story. His father owned Joe's Market, and him and his wife ran the market. And there he was every day as a little kid, staying, working the American dream, helping his parents pay for everything. And he was little, and he grew, and I remember saying, I'm going to be a fireman. And there he was, a little kid helping his mom late at night at the store. So it's a beautiful dream, and how he lived the dream.
And I think as a leader in this community, as sheriff, I have to do a better job at featuring those stories, right, and putting them on front, because I think those type of stories resonate with our youth, and those are the folks that need to be the mentors for the future leaders of tomorrow.
Is it a correction?
Sharia, she has
homegrown. 2 or 3 degrees, right?
Yes.
Right?
She's homegrown right here in Miami-Dade.
I heard her speak once. I go, wow.
Yeah.
She has 2 or 3 degrees. Okay, I understand you want to create a public corruption unit. Everybody thinks these people are corrupted, and then we can't handle it because we know this. Where do you see that is in the next 30 to 60 after you get elected? 30 to 60 days.
Well, I think for sure the public corruption unit is something that I've said that I'm going to do within the first 30 days. We have a public corruption unit in Miami-Dade Police Department. I could tell you, in my capacity as director of corrections, and even now as chief of public safety, I've benefited from it. I depended heavily on them to help me clean up some of the contraband that was coming in the jails when I first arrived here in Miami-Dade County, and they did a wonderful job. I think they're part of the reason why we've been able to, in our jails, reduce overdoses, reduce deaths and suicides because of the proactive work that they did in identifying folks that were bringing in contraband. And
that was staff.
Correct, staff, but not only not only sworn staff, but you have civilian staff, you have medical staff. There's a whole host of different staff that have access to our jails that we were able to investigate and be able to root out, so to speak. But the reason why I emphasize so much the word independent when we talk about public corruption is that while I talk to the community and I'm campaigning, the community just doesn't feel that the current public corruption can be independent because it falls under county government, right? And they want, now that we have a sheriff's office that is going to be independent, that office to have that independence to investigate anybody, regardless of who they are, whether it's county government or even within the police department or within corrections as well. And that's my commitment, is to do it in a transparent way and to hold our electeds accountable and our sworn officers accountable should they violate the law.
You know, why do you think this is so important to separate it? So we talked about it, but let's review it again. Before, the real sheriff was the mayor.
Right.
By separating, what does that do?
It gives more of a voice to the people. While the people elect the mayor, and I understand that, having the people elect the sheriff is responsive to the residents of this county. You know, when you look at Miami-Dade Police Department, historically how it's been run and the approach, you know, it's unincorporated, and the 3 cities they contract with, right? Miami Lakes, Cutler Bay, Palmetto Bay, and obviously I know we have the airport and the seaport. But with that said, coming from a sheriff's office, even if that resident has a municipal police department, that concern that resident has is still now important to the sheriff as well, because that resident votes as much as the resident that lives in unincorporated or in Miami Lakes or in Cutler Bay. So the sheriff needs to build a relationship with the municipal police departments and the levels of communication that when citizens have concerns and they voice their concerns to him or her, that he is able to work with the police chiefs in order to address the concerns of those residents. That's just one small part, but it's also so that we can work more efficiently, right? Right now, as a police department, as an extension of county government, we need to abide and go through county commission for purchases, the county commission for contracts. Correct. Now, once we have a sheriff, the sheriff will have the autonomy to get those things off the ground, and to the service levels that our officers and our community deserves without the weight and the extra steps that it takes to go through commission.
A lot of people don't know there's 34 cities within Miami-Dade County. City Miami is one of the biggest, Hialeah, Miami Beach, and then there's unincorporated, UMSA as we call it.
Yes.
People get a little confused if you're in, let's say you're in Aventura, South Miami, or Hialeah, the local police come. Why does the county come in? They see the county cop car. Does the county police sometimes come in to oversee homicides?
Yes. So we investigate homicides for a lot of the smaller municipalities that don't have capacity. So there are some small, we talked about, for example, like El Portal, that don't have the capacity of a large police department or a sheriff's office. And for those departments, we supplement them with homicide investigations, and God forbid if they need our SWAT or whatnot.
But when somebody gets arrested in any of the cities, they're brought to the county jail.
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
Hold on, Mom.
Mom is important. That's an important call.
Well, I think you nailed it down to what people understand what the sheriff's going to be. This is an important thing. And what I like, the biggest issue I liked is we either elect you or not elect you.
That's right.
You know, in the past, it went through the mayor's office.
That's right.
So the sheriff will have some people to answer to.
That's right.
And that's the most important thing to me is each department now has the citizens, the residents of Dade County. And how many, I say 3 million, but how many are there? in Dade County.
I think I'm going to go with your number. 3 million sounds about right.
But it's exciting. I'm looking forward to you being the sheriff. Everybody, Grant Miller here, but public safety director, who's running for sheriff, Reyes. Have a great day. Everybody, see you later.
See you.
Bye.